October 29th, 2017. In less than 72 hours after the first public accusation, Netflix suspended Kevin Spacey and announced the final season of House of Cards would move forward without him. A man who had won 2 Academy Awards and led a $100 million flagship series was suddenly erased from the platform that helped redefine modern television. Within 1 week, contracts were terminated, scenes were red hot, and one of Hollywood's most powerful figures disappeared from the center of the industry. How does a career built over 30 years collapse in 7 days? Before October 2017, Kevin Spacey wasn't just a respected actor. He was untouchable. In 1996, he won his first Academy Award for The Usual Suspects. In 2000, he stood on the Oscar stage again, holding Best Actor for American Beauty. 2 Oscars in 4 years placed him in a rare tier. Actors who didn't chase fame but commanded it. By 2013, he became the face of a new era. Netflix invested more than $100 million into House of Cards, its first major original series. Spacey wasn't just the lead. He was executive producer. The show revolved around him. Frank Underwood looked into the camera and spoke directly to the audience. Cold, calculated, always in control. The series earned multiple Emmy nominations. It proved streaming could rival cable giants like HBO. And at the center of that shift stood Kevin Spacey, not just as talent, but as leverage. At the same time, he was artistic director of London's Old Vic Theatre, overseeing more than 200 productions between 2004 and 2015. He decided who performed, who advanced, who stayed invisible. By the mid-2010s, Spacey held 3 forms of power: prestige, influence, authority. So when the accusation surfaced, it didn't just target an actor. It shook a man embedded in the structure of modern entertainment. If someone this established could fall overnight, was he protected for years? Or was the system itself waiting for the right moment to let go? Kevin Spacey was born Kevin Spacey Fowler on July 26, 1959, in South Orange, New Jersey. He grew up in a household that valued discipline more than comfort. His father, Thomas Jeffrey Fowler, worked as a technical writer, but carried rigid political beliefs and a volatile temperament. The family moved frequently, searching for stability that never quite lasted. For a young boy, constant relocation meant learning to read rooms quickly, adapt and survive, and understand that control often determined who felt safe. Spacey later described his father as authoritarian and unpredictable. Structure existed, but warmth was inconsistent. That kind of environment produces a specific skill, the ability to perform different versions of yourself depending on who is watching. When you cannot control your surroundings, you learn to control your reactions. When you cannot change authority, you learn to anticipate it. During his teenage years in California, Spacey attended Chatsworth High School. It was there that he began experimenting with performance. He joined drama classes. He studied impersonations. He watched how audiences reacted. On stage, something shifted. For the first time, he was not adjusting to someone else's rules. He was setting the tone. He could command silence. He could trigger laughter. He could shape perception. He dropped Fowler and adopted Spacey, his grandmother's maiden name. The name change was subtle but symbolic. Reinvention became part of his identity early on. He learned that identity is flexible if you know how to present it. That lesson would follow him for decades. Unlike many rising actors, Spacey kept his personal life almost entirely private. Interviews focused on craft, not family. He rarely revealed relationships. He avoided tabloid culture. Privacy became strategy. In an industry built on exposure, he built distance. That distance created mystique, and mystique created control. In the late 1970s, he moved to New York and enrolled in the Juilliard School. Though he did not complete the program, formal training mattered, but what mattered more was discipline. Theater demanded precision. Stage work rewarded preparation. There were no retakes, no editing. If you faltered, the audience saw it in real time. That pressure strengthened his ability to remain composed under scrutiny. By the early 1980s, Spacey was working consistently in theater, earning respect as a serious actor rather than a celebrity. He studied character psychology. He gravitated toward complex roles, men who concealed motives, Men who appeared ordinary but carried something hidden beneath the surface. These choices were not accidental. They mirrored a worldview shaped by observation and guardedness. Control became his silent foundation. Control over image, control over narrative, control over emotion. If you master control early enough, it becomes invisible to others. But when control defines identity, what happens when the narrative slips beyond your reach? By the mid-1980s, Kevin Spacey had built something more valuable than fame. He had built credibility. Broadway recognized him as disciplined and technically sharp. Directors trusted him with roles that required precision rather than charm. He did not chase leading man status in romantic comedies or action films. Instead, he gravitated toward characters that carried ambiguity. That choice shaped the trajectory of his career. In 1995, The Usual Suspects changed everything. Playing Verbal Kint, Spacey delivered a performance built entirely on restraint. The twist at the film's end redefined the character, and the Academy rewarded him with Best Supporting Actor in 1996. It was not just an award. It was validation that subtle manipulation on screen could command the highest recognition in the industry. For years later, American Beauty elevated him further. Lester Burnham was not heroic. He was disillusioned, dissatisfied, quietly unraveling, yet the performance resonated worldwide. In March 2000, Spacey won Best Actor. 2 Oscars before the age of 45 placed him in a category occupied by only a handful of actors. Prestige surrounded him. But Spacey did something unexpected. Rather than doubling down on blockbuster dominance, he deepened his ties to theater. In 2004, he became artistic director of London's Old Vic Theatre. The position gave him authority beyond acting. He oversaw programming, casting, and development. Between 2004 and 2015, the Old Vic produced more than 200 shows under his leadership. That meant influence over careers, influence over opportunities, influence over who entered the spotlight and who did not. This was a different path from typical Hollywood stardom. It was quieter, less visible to tabloids, but structurally powerful. He was no longer just performing within the system. He was helping shape it. At the same time, his public image remained controlled. Interviews stayed focused on craft. Personal disclosures were minimal. There were no high-profile relationships dominating headlines. He existed professionally, almost surgically. Clean, respected, strategic. Then in 2013, House of Cards arrived. Netflix committed more than $100 million to its first major original series. Spacey was not only the lead actor, he was executive producer. The platform's future rested partly on his credibility. When the show premiered, it proved streaming could compete with traditional networks. Frank Underwood became synonymous with calculated power. By the mid-2010s, Spacey stood at a rare intersection: Oscar prestige, institutional authority at the Old Vic, creative and financial leverage at Netflix. 3 layers of control operating simultaneously. When someone reaches that level of embedded influence, is success still about talent, or has it become about maintaining a structure built around one name? By 2013, Kevin Spacey was no longer just an award-winning actor. He was infrastructure. When House of Cards premiered in February 2013, Netflix released all 13 episodes at once. The experiment reshaped viewing habits. Within months, the platform reported millions of subscribers streaming the series globally. Analysts later estimated Netflix invested over $100 million into the first 2 seasons combined. It was the largest bet in the company's history at that time, and the bet was built around one face. Frank Underwood did something unusual for television. He spoke directly to the audience. He leaned toward the camera and broke the fourth wall with calculated calm. Spacey delivered those moments without raising his voice. Control was the character's defining trait. Power was quiet, deliberate, inevitable. Viewers associated that authority with the actor himself. Awards followed. Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Television Series in 2015. Multiple Emmy nominations across consecutive seasons. Critics credited Spacey with legitimizing streaming as prestige television. His presence reassured traditional audiences that Netflix was not experimental chaos, but structured storytelling. Meanwhile, his tenure at the Old Vic reinforced his reputation as a cultural figure beyond Hollywood. From 2004 to 2015, attendance increased, international tours expanded, and the theater regained global visibility. Spacey appeared both on stage and behind the scenes. He selected productions. He mentored performers. He occupied the position of gatekeeper. This combination of roles was rare. Few actors simultaneously held Academy Awards, executive production authority on a flagship global series, and artistic leadership of historic European theater. Spacey's influence spanned continents and industries. He could greenlight scripts, elevate young actors, and anchor billion-dollar platforms. Publicly, his image remained composed. Interviews were articulate, controlled, almost detached. He rarely appeared in tabloid controversies. There were no chaotic press cycles. He seemed disciplined, intentional, strategic. By the mid-2010s, Spacey was embedded in the architecture of modern entertainment. Streaming relied on credibility. Theater relied on stewardship. Hollywood relied on prestige. He stood at the center of all three. When power is distributed across so many layers, does it become invisible or does it become untouchable? October 29th, 2017 did not begin as a courtroom moment. It began as an interview. Actor Anthony Rapp publicly stated that in 1986, when he was 14 years old, Kevin Spacey made an inappropriate advance toward him at a party in New York. The allegation was printed, shared, amplified within hours. Social media accelerated it. News outlets repeated it. The story did not stay contained. Within 24 hours, Netflix announced it was deeply troubled. Within 72 hours, the company suspended Spacey and declared that the upcoming season of House of Cards would proceed without him. Production halted. Writers reworked scripts. An entire season was restructured to remove the central character of the series. The speed was unprecedented. Then the domino effect began. More individuals came forward. Some were actors, some were crew members. Several allegations referenced Spacey's time as artistic director at the Old Vic Theater between 2004 and 2015. Reports claimed patterns of inappropriate behavior behind closed doors. The Old Vic publicly stated it had received multiple complaints connected to that period. The institution that once amplified his authority now distanced itself from his name. In Hollywood, studios operate through contracts and risk calculations. Insurance policies matter. Public perception matters more. Within days, Spacey was removed from the completed film All the Money in the World. Director Ridley Scott made a rare decision: reshoot the entire role with Christopher Plummer just weeks before release. Scenes that had already been filmed were erased. Millions of dollars were spent to replace him. That choice sent a signal. The industry was not waiting for legal resolution. It was protecting itself. Spacey released a statement that attempted to address the allegation and, in the same message, publicly acknowledged being gay. The response was immediate and divisive. Critics accused him of conflating sexual orientation with misconduct. Advocacy groups condemned the timing. The narrative slipped further from his control. For decades, Spacey had managed visibility carefully. Interviews were measured. Personal life remained largely private. Now, the conversation unfolded without his direction. Headlines framed him as a symbol of systemic abuse within powerful institutions. The hashtag #MeToo movement, already gaining force, expanded rapidly. His case became part of a broader reckoning. Internally, the collapse was not only professional, it was structural. Power relies on networks, agents, studios, boards, publicists. Once those networks withdraw, influence evaporates quickly. In less than 1 week, Spacey lost a flagship series, major representation, and institutional backing. 30 years of accumulation unraveled in days. Yet there was a deeper fracture. For years, he had operated within layers of authority: Oscar prestige, executive production leverage, leadership at a historic theater. Those layers created insulation. They also created silence. Allegations that may have once been contained through internal channels were now public. The industry that once valued discretion now prioritized visible accountability. The question was no longer whether Kevin Spacey could control his image. The question became whether any individual embedded so deeply in power structures could withstand a cultural shift of that magnitude. Do you want to continue with segment 2, going deeper into the legal battles, institutional fallout, and psychological dimensions of losing systemic control? The weeks that followed were not defined by film premieres or award ceremonies. They were defined by investigations. In the United States, a civil case connected to Anthony Rapp moved toward trial. In Massachusetts, a separate criminal charge related to an alleged 2016 incident was filed in 2018. In the United Kingdom, prosecutors reviewed multiple allegations tied to events between 2001 and 2013. Each jurisdiction operated independently. Each headline extended the story. In July 2019, the Massachusetts criminal case was dropped after the accuser declined to testify. In 2022, a New York civil jury found Spacey not liable in Anthony Rapp's lawsuit. In July 2023, a London jury acquitted him of 9 criminal charges. On paper, the legal outcomes were clear. He was not convicted. But legality and legitimacy do not move at the same speed. Even as courtrooms delivered verdicts, the industry remained distant. House of Cards completed its final season without Frank Underwood. The show that once relied on his presence rewrote its narrative entirely. Awards bodies did not reinstate recognition. Major studios did not announce new collaborations. The structural insulation that once protected him did not rebuild. Spacey attempted communication through unconventional channels. On several Christmas Eve between 2018 and 2022, he released short videos online. Speaking in a tone that mirrored Frank Underwood, he addressed the audience directly, hinting at betrayal and loyalty. The videos were cryptic. Some viewers saw irony, others saw defiance. Regardless of interpretation, the symbolism was stark. A character built on manipulation had merged with the public image of the actor who played him. Behind the scenes, professional consequences extended beyond visibility. Representation shifted. Insurance companies became cautious. Investors weighed reputational risk. Even projects filmed abroad faced distribution challenges in the United States. The mechanism of exclusion did not require formal bans. It required silence from decision makers, calls not returned, meetings not scheduled. Culturally, the environment had changed. The hashtag #MeToo movement had altered expectations around accountability in entertainment, media, and politics. Executives now understood that ignoring accusations could damage entire corporations. Public relations strategies shifted from containment to rapid separation. Spacey's case became one of the earliest and most visible examples of this new calculus. Internally, the loss of systemic control carries a psychological cost. For decades, Spacey's authority rested on layered legitimacy, artistic excellence, institutional leadership, commercial success. When those layers were removed, the question was no longer about talent. It was about trust. Influence without trust cannot function. Authority without endorsement cannot operate. Even after acquittals, interviews revealed a different tone. He spoke about financial strain, about selling property, about being in debt. The image of embedded power gave way to vulnerability. The infrastructure that once amplified his voice had narrowed to scattered appearances in smaller European productions. The collapse, then, was not only about accusations. It was about exposure. A culture that once tolerated silence had shifted toward scrutiny. A network that once absorbed complaints internally had turned outward. Whether the change was overdue reform or reactionary swing, the outcome for him was the same. The system moved on. When power depends on networks rather than individuals, what remains after the network withdraws its protection? The verdict in New York came in October 2022. A federal jury found Kevin Spacey not liable in Anthony Rapp's civil lawsuit. Cameras waited outside the courthouse. Headlines shifted tone. The word accused was replaced with cleared. For the first time in 5 years, the legal narrative bent in his favor. Less than a year later, in July 2023, a London jury acquitted him of 9 criminal charges. He stood outside Southwark Crown Court and spoke briefly to reporters. He thanked the jurors. He said he was grateful to have his life back. On paper, the most severe threat had passed. But acquittal does not automatically restore status. A court can clear liability. It cannot command trust. The industry that had moved quickly in 2017 did not reverse its decision with equal speed. There was no major studio announcement welcoming him back. No streaming platform built a new flagship project around his name. The silence that once protected him had been replaced by a different kind of silence, distance. In the months following the verdicts, Spacey began appearing in smaller productions, many based in Europe. The scale was modest. Budgets were limited. Distribution uncertain. These were not prestige awards campaigns. They were working roles. Lines delivered in contained markets. Projects that did not depend on billion-dollar marketing cycles. This shift marked a turning point not of redemption, but of reduction. For decades, he operated at the center of systems. Hollywood studios, Netflix infrastructure, London theater leadership. Now he worked at the edges. The gravitational pull had changed. The architecture no longer revolved around him. Interviews during this period revealed another layer of reality. Spacey spoke about financial pressure. He mentioned selling property to stay solvent. For someone who once anchored a series valued at more than $100 million in production commitments, the contrast was stark. Power had once generated leverage. Leverage had once generated insulation. Now there was exposure. Yet there was also persistence. He did not disappear completely. He continued acting. He appeared at select events abroad. He spoke publicly about feeling vindicated by the courts. Whether one interprets that as resilience or denial depends on perspective. What remains undeniable is that he chose to continue working rather than retreat entirely. The industry, however, operates on perception as much as legality. Studios calculate risk not only by verdicts but by optics. Investors consider audience reaction. Public memory does not reset with a judge's instruction. Even acquittal leaves a residue of controversy. That residue affects insurance rates, marketing partnerships, and distribution deals. For Spacey, the turning point was therefore ambiguous. He had avoided criminal conviction. He had avoided civil liability in his most visible case, but he had not regained structural authority. There was no return to executive producer control over flagship content, no restoration of artistic director influence within major institutions. The rebirth, if it existed, was narrower and more fragile than the power he once commanded. There is a difference between survival and restoration. Survival means continuing to exist professionally. Restoration means regaining the system that once amplified you. In Spacey's case, the first occurred. The second did not. Culturally, his case became part of a larger debate. Can an artist re-enter the mainstream after acquittal? Should industry reintegration depend solely on legal outcomes? Is reputational exile reversible? These questions extended beyond one individual. They reflected how entertainment recalibrated power in the post-2017 era. For decades, Spacey's authority was layered. Awards prestige, institutional leadership, executive leverage. After 2017, those layers peeled away. What remained was the craft itself. Acting without infrastructure, performance without systemic dominance. A different kind of rebirth is quieter. It does not begin with applause. It begins with smaller rooms, smaller contracts, and uncertain distribution. It requires adjusting to a world where influence no longer precedes your name. If power once defined his position, what defines him now when that power is thinned to skill alone? In the years following the trials, Kevin Spacey's presence in mainstream American cinema remained minimal. He continued acting, primarily in independent European projects, but the scale was markedly different. No global marketing campaigns, no major studio rollouts, no red carpet cycles tied to billion-dollar platforms. The contrast with his 2013, the 2016 peak was unmistakable. At the same time, the work he created before 2017 did not disappear. The usual suspect still appears in film studies courses. American Beauty remains part of late 1990s cultural analysis. House of Cards is still cited as a turning point in streaming history. The architecture of prestige television did not collapse with his removal. It continued evolving. This duality defines his legacy. Artistically, the achievements remain documented. 2 Academy Awards, a Golden Globe, decades of theater and screen work. Structurally, his case became a reference point in discussions about institutional accountability. The speed of corporate response in 2017 is often analyzed as a moment when risk management overtook individual loyalty. Within the industry, a new caution took hold. Executives learned that silence could damage entire brands. Human resources protocols tightened. Reporting systems were formalized. Whether these changes were sufficient or symbolic, they marked a shift. Spacey's fall became part of a broader narrative about recalibrating power in entertainment. For audiences, memory is more complicated. Some viewers separate performance from person. Others cannot. Rewatching House of Cards now carries different context than it did a decade ago. Frank Underwood's manipulation feels less fictional. Lester Burnham's dissatisfaction reads differently. Interpretation evolves when biography intrudes on art. Spacey exists in that space between documented talent and contested reputation. The industry did not erase his past work, but it did reconfigure its willingness to invest in his future. When legacy is split between artistic accomplishment and cultural controversy, which narrative endures longer? The performance on screen or the power structure that once protected it? Kevin Spacey built a career on control. Control of character, control of tone, control of image. For nearly 3 decades, that control aligned with institutional power. Awards validated it. Platforms amplified it. The system supported it. Then the system recalculated. Allegations triggered corporate separation before legal resolution. Networks withdrew. The insulation disappeared. Courtrooms later delivered acquittals. But the architecture of influence did not reconstruct itself. This story is not only about guilt or innocence. It is about how authority functions inside creative industries. Power accumulates quietly. It embeds through contracts, boards, and platforms. And when cultural values shift, that same structure can attach just as quickly. A career built over 30 years can unravel in 7 days. But perhaps the deeper question is not how fast it falls. It is how much of that rise depended on systems that preferred silence. When the lights dim and the contract dissolve, what remains? The talent that earned recognition, or the network that once guaranteed it?